Okay, here we are with our inaugural Digital Leading and Learning podcast. I'm Evan Dolan.
John High here, guys. Welcome. Do me a favor, before you go ahead, like and subscribe down below. Check us out, and stay tuned for our weekly episodes to come.
So we're just going to kind of go off the cuff here. We're going to talk about some things that we've been implementing in our classrooms, our innovation plans. Why don't you kick us off? What is your innovation plan? What's the whole premise of your work in this program?
Yeah, Evan. So really, I think it's so important. We've seen COVID and the pandemic kind of thrust us into this further technological age than we already were in. We talk about 21st century skills, but I think we found out that our kids needed way more support working virtually than they did in person. I know me as a transition coordinator, I've really been focusing on how I can use technology to affect students in creating their e-portfolio and making informed decisions for transition activities that focus on college after high school, independent living skills, and employment.
So what I'll say about COVID, right? That's a good topic of discussion. The whole hybrid learning process, which was preceded by the full digital learning process. It was like you just got to hit the ground running and you got to learn on the fly. Now that we've gone through that, and you look at all of these industries across the United States, across the globe, moving towards more remote style of work and professionalism, these concepts, these skills, these technologies, these software programs need to be more integrated into our traditional forms of instruction. So you deal with primarily special needs students and their transition from secondary school into post-secondary. So
correct.
How are you integrating technology specifically in that transition process?
So great question. Here's a really specific example. One of the things that the program we're in right now through Lamar has been helping me with is identify ways that we can use technology to meet their needs. And one way that I found, especially going through the pandemic with virtual learning, is using e-portfolios. So what we did was, for our students enrolled in our work study program and with all our special ed department, we rolled out a career portfolio. And basically what that does is it's a free-flowing document that students can create. They get to choose what goes into their portfolio, and there's a couple assignments that must be in there, like a resume. However, what that resume looks like, how it's done, is completely up to the student. And it's been really amazing to see not just their writing, their reading, and their math skills improve through this process, but also their technology skills. Now they're very easily able to add an attachment to something, drop something in, which is something that I may have overlooked or taken for granted with some of these special needs students. So the e-portfolio process has touched on just simple technology skills, and then we're talking about applying to jobs, meeting the new technology standards of. It's hard to find a paper application these days, So students are working through those processes. They're learning about applications that can not only help them but support them. So maybe we have a non-reader. We're learning about using tools from OneNote to help support you in reading what's on an application to fill it out, or accessing, writing tools that can help you fill out the application for students that are.
And how's it going? Are the students thriving in this new type of digital world? Has there been any pushback from students, from colleagues? How reflect on the whole transition?
I would say we're having more pushback from some colleagues, where we're seeing a little bit of change. In the past, transition activities have been tracked differently as you go teacher to teacher, and now we're requiring our staff to use technology to do this. They're willing to do it, but I find that there's way less pushback from the students. I think it's made it easier for the students in some ways. There absolutely is a learning curve, but I think with any change in technology or implementation, it's something that you need to plan for, and we were able to do that. So I don't know. It's something that throughout the building I've gotten positive feedback on. I think what I'm really interested to see is, will students continue to edit, revise, and use these? One of the most important things about their portfolio is that it's theirs. I think a big piece in some of the research has shown that to make an e-portfolio the best and so it can be used is really providing the student with ownership over that e-portfolio, letting them choose what goes in there and what that document looks like. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and I've seen that the student buy-in is much higher as opposed to me assigning something and requiring it that it be in there.
So I was thinking of something as you were talking about that. Like I obviously teaching social studies, we teach global history. One thing I often talk to my students about, like say we're doing the French Revolution or we're doing like Latin American independence movements, is like sometimes you need to take a step backwards in order to take 2 steps forwards, and that's
Right.
kind of how this like whole movement towards integrating technology has gone for me, and it kind of sounds like something similar on your end. Is like there's going to be a learning curve, there's going to be some trials and tribulations early on, but these are transferable skills that will benefit our students in the long run. So like I understand some of these older teachers who, you know, perhaps are completely stepping outside of their comfort zone. They didn't grow up in like any type of digital age, and now they're being asked to like integrate all these technologies and like completely like reassess the way they provide instruction. But that's kind of our job, you know, like just, and I teach history again. So what's frustrating is our district's kind of emphasis on standardized tests. And in a history course, it's trivia. It's historical trivia that the students are gonna, you know, we talk about social emotional learning and this and that, and it's like, oh, why do all of our students have anxiety? And, well, you know, I don't know, because we're asking them to study for these tests that are heavily weighted and have so much like, you know, just overall weight on their transcripts, their grades, their final exam, midterm, all the. And we're assessing them on trivia. None of this trivia, so I shouldn't say none of it, but like the key ideas, the big concepts, the thematic aspects of history are important as foundational knowledge in order to be like an informed citizen. But what's really important from my perspective is the transfer of meaningful utility, which is technology. We're in the 21st century. Like my sister, for example, works in cybersecurity. Like that's a growing field. She works from home like 4 to 5 days. You know, like technology is the world we live in now. So where there is definitely, you know, some pushback from my department as well. I'm trying to revise our curriculum in a way that reduces content and emphasizes more like project-based learning, blended learning, and I'm getting some of that through, but there has been some pushback, and you know, it's just it feels archaic the way our district, and I'm not just trying to single out our district, just like the Department of Ed in general, emphasizes still paper and pencil standardized tests.
Well, and you know what, I kind of agree with you, like, or I agree with you absolutely. Thinking about this, it's funny, like I said, that ownership piece is such a big thing, but when we're out here making kids, standardizing them against a test, using a test, you know, that's one of the beautiful things about that e-portfolio is I've learned so much more about my students because I see how the work that they provide when it's about their future. Now here's another interesting component, Evan. We talk about the world changing. Part of my job is 50% working with the school and 50% working with the real world. It's merging students ready to leave into the real world. And I'll tell you, I've had interesting conversations with employers about some of our students and the skills that they do have. And I think, speaking to your point, the standardized testing almost takes away from some of those functional employment skills that kids need in today's age. For instance, like people aren't going to work anymore. Do you know what I mean? They're working from home. They're using technology to call in, to meet, to share, to present, whatever it is. Sales, people used to be on the road. They're not doing it anymore. They're able to do it over a computer, you know? So, we're really working on skills. Like I always tell parents in a meeting, you know, they're talking about they want their son or daughter to, you know, be able to go to the bank and take out money, and I'm like, that doesn't happen anymore. You know what I mean? I personally haven't paid a bill with a check in years. Everything is online and it's on auto pay. So I think even like schools almost, because of that standardized testing, build this bubble. And I think it's great to provide a safe environment for kids to learn, but one place that we may be doing them a little bit of a disservice is preparing them for reality in the real world.
The real world as it is now, and we're really preparing them for a future that doesn't even exist yet. Like technology is only going to become more and more integrated with all aspects of our, you know, society here in the United States and across Western civilization. It's inevitable. And I think it's so important as, you know, teachers in the secondary public school in Pennsylvania. We're going to school. This program's in Texas. Hello from Pennsylvania, everybody. You know, Great to work with everyone. This stuff wouldn't be possible, 10, 15 years ago. Like the way we have Zoom conferences and office hours online.
Even
We're
be able
recording
to
a podcast.
having a podcast, even being able to. I know some of those Monday night classes, guys. That's when my kiddos are going to bed, on our Eastern Standard
Yeah.
Time. So even just having the ability to rewatch a class, go back and check something in the videos, like a professor can post their session, so it's accessible. And in today's age, accessibility is, it's vital.
And who knows what this program, for example, will look like 10 years from now. So we're preparing students not just for like being successful in the immediate like digital age that we're in, but like going forward, students need to experience learning technology because it's only going to continue. Like there's going to be new aspects of technology, and once they've already mastered concepts that previously they were unfamiliar with, it just makes, builds your confidence, makes it, it just makes your whole life easier knowing that you can go, and as society progresses with regards to technology, you can just kind of hit the ground running and pick these things up. So obviously this program I feel has been very valuable in that I'm definitely stepping outside my comfort zone. I didn't know what an e-portfolio was. I didn't know what blended learning was. And now I'm doing an innovation proposal to my district while I'm currently revising the 10th grade social studies curriculum to integrate more project-based blended learning opportunities in lieu of our standardized tests. I'm not getting to a point where we can reduce standardized tests. Like I still have to give 8 summative assessments, which are common tests that all of the 10th grade teachers give. There's no room for discussion with regards to that. We're still giving a midterm. We're still giving a final. But in writing the curriculum, I am reducing content, which allows me to slow down my instruction. We're not on an assembly line in here, and we can explore various, modalities of, new technology. We're currently with my 10th graders who are actually at lunch right now. We're doing projects using Flipgrid and PowerPoint, and I have students absent today who are still pulling their weight. They're still contributing. They have shared documents, shared PowerPoints. The Flipgrid is something that everybody can access remotely or in class, and that's what school should look like now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think about the project we had
But
to
it
do.
takes time. Sorry to interrupt. It takes time.
And I think because technology evolves so quickly, and the way that, at least in Pennsylvania, the education system is set up, but probably across the United States, we're so reactionary. Do you know what I mean? Like, what can we do to be proactive towards staying ahead of that technological curve? And I'll be honest, Evan, I don't know what the answer is, because I think technology is evolving so quickly now that I'm not sure if districts have like the financial capability to necessarily stay ahead of it either.
Right, and maybe you don't have to stay ahead of the curve, but
With it, yeah.
like if somebody was to walk into my room today, they're not going to see me in front of the class near the smart board going over content with my students who are taking notes. Like that's my whole innovation proposal, I'm calling it the future of history, because that's been the way people have taught history for decades. The school should not look like that anymore. Stand and deliver, take notes, study your notes, take a test. Here's a new unit, stand and deliver, take more notes. Here's new content, here's a new test. Let's collect the data from these tests. That assembly line of like learning about historical facts and dates and that is so archaic. School should look like groups collaborating with technology integrated into projects, which research, historical inquiry, source analysis, corroboration, these are all transferable skills that will prepare my students to be successful next year, the year after, in college, as professionals after college, in trade school, doing whatever in just the workforce.
The transferable skills that you get from a successful blended learning classroom are completely transferable to the workplace, to
Right.
college setting, and I think that's one thing where it's like, how do you change that across when you have a hallway of teachers who have started at all different times and have learned, as that pendulum swings and new methods come out, and it's almost like keeping up with the times. That's exactly what it is. So it's really interesting to see how much it affects our day to day, here at the school. I definitely have seen students though a little bit more like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when it's not take notes and lecture.
There's no ownership over that.
Correct,
There's no voice.
yeah.
There's no authenticity.
Yeah.
You don't have to problem solve. Now, who wants to solve problems? But that solving problems is a key to success in life. Like, you're going to be faced with problems. Now, my students in collaborating, they're being faced with problems. Like, there are, not everyone's easy to work with. Not everyone pulls their weight. But you have that's the reality of life. And you have to kind of find ways to navigate that and still maximize your time together and be efficient with your time management. Obviously that's the value that I've been finding in this program.
Yeah,
Even on our own end, sorry to interrupt,
No, yeah.
I've had to redo my e-portfolio.
Yeah.
I still struggle with Wix. I wish I didn't use Wix. I wish I went with WordPress.
Yeah.
I've even considered redoing it again.
I did redo mine again.
That's what I'm saying.
I redid my e-portfolio because
Things
I was
happen.
like- and it's
And you gotta
real life.
figure it out.
It's real life.
That's life.
Yeah.
So there's no I don't know. Sometimes our students, I feel like certain students, there's this like learned helplessness. Like if you're faced with a task that maybe you're outside of your comfort zone and something goes wrong, it's just like, well, I gave it a shot. Didn't work. Can you do this for me? I don't know how to do it. I'll help you. I'm here to support you. That's my job. Like I'm a facilitator of learning, but sometimes you gotta let them figure it out.
Well, I was just gonna say.
And once they figure it out, they recognize that they can figure things out.
I notice we have a lot more students today, at least I feel this way, that they're looking for the right answer. And I think sometimes the right answer there is no right answer. Sometimes it's about the process. It's about, I always try to tell some of our special ed students in work study, this really isn't about, this assignment here isn't about writing an application. It's about identifying your skills and abilities and putting them onto paper and practicing taking those things from the paper and putting them into words in an interview, and the process of doing that. And it's funny, I have kids that go and they'll be like, I didn't get the job. And I'm like, yeah, I knew you weren't going to get the job, but you just practiced it. What did you do wrong? What could you have done better? And as long as they're coming out of there with something that can tell me, I said that my availability, that I really couldn't work that much, and I wouldn't have said that next time. Well, hey, that's a great idea,
That's mindset, right? Too. We talk about the growth mindset, the innovators mindset. Students who have that defeatist mindset. If you came out of that job interview and you're like, I didn't get the job, super down on yourself, and or you come out of that job interview process okay, this is what I would do differently next time, or this. I just gained experience with regards to how would I answer this question in an interview. That's what it's all about. The process over the product. Maybe you get a job first shot, great. You do the ends justify the means there? Yeah, in that case they do. But in some cases it's about, like you said, the process is what's most valuable.
Yeah, I agree.
And coming out of that with some degree, some level of growth.
Listen to me. I know that this might not be the little shiniest catchphrase that I have, but when I used to coach swimmers, I used to tell them, failure is manure for growth.
I like it.
It's
it.
Sometimes failing is just what we need to get through that obstacle again. And I think especially in blended learning, in the project-based stuff, in a work study environment, building opportunities for learned failure is providing opportunities for growth for our students. Because like you said, there's so many times where it's learned helplessness, or they're waiting for someone to help them with something that they should have self-started on their own, or whatever it may be. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. What else do we have on the agenda here? So, talk to me about your lit review.
Hey, so my lit review, I'll be honest, when I started
what does the literature tell us about special ed transitioning?
Well, so it's interesting. We're finding that work-based experience is so important for students, and especially with intellectual disabilities or on the autism spectrum. And one thing that I've learned working in the transition department is that any experience we can give students to pick up skills, especially technology skills, I can't think that there's very few jobs that I think of where a student might not need to punch in on a clock. That's technology. Scanning someone in at a gym, technology. A lot of the stuff we do now, even custodians are filling their buckets using automated fillers, so they're not over using too many chemicals and whatnot. Technology, the floors they use to wipe the water up, technology. So really, it's trying to focus, adapt, and then support. So what we do is we work with employers to say, hey, this is because the research has shown, if we can find even a piece of a job that a student can do, but that job may provide more time for an employer, there's opportunities for relationships to be built. So trying to bring some of these people together and provide those students with experiences that are hand-on, yet still accommodating their needs, has been the challenge, but I think technology is part of the solution to that. And that's really what the research is showing, that there's all types of things, whether it is, maybe it's a student who needs to use a digital e-portfolio to maintain, to revise executive functioning needs. All those things help more than sticking a resume in a folder and sending it home with a student who may have problems with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so my lit review is on basically like the effects, the impacts, the benefits of blended learning in a secondary setting, right? Or a project-based blended learning. I've kind of like combined the two.
Do you find that your students are more motivated when it's project-based?
So it's a good question. In advance of assigning this project that we're currently working on, so I'm doing it with my honor students and my academic students. So just for the sake of like contextualizing what that means, like honor students are, like the course is a little more rigorous. The project has it's a little more involved, but it's similar. Like the academic students are doing sort of the same things, but actually using more technology. The honor students are presenting their work to the class, in front of the class. The academic students are not going to do that. But anyway, before I introduced the assignment, I proposed the question to all of my classes. I teach 5 sections. And it was like, we're going to do a project. I'm going to explain all the requirements, the criteria, the integration of technology, et cetera. But let's just talk about projects in general. How do we feel about this? What are the pros and cons? And it was kind of a mixed bag. Some students were like, yeah, I love this. Love working in groups. And they're engaged. They have a deadline, They're working together, they're delegating. Some students were a little bit like, oh, no, why are we doing a project? Like, give me a hard time about it. And I said, I get that. There are pros and cons to this. I'm going to basically explain how the pros outweigh the cons and how this is super beneficial to you guys. But, let's talk about the cons. And then, they mentioned people absent, people not pulling their weight, someone who does all the work. And I get that. And I tell them, look, I always reserve the right to give individual grades. The goal is a collective grade. The goal is you guys work well together, you delegate well, you collaborate well, you meet your deadline, you solve problems along the way. That's the goal. But there are definitely downsides to it. Like we were tasked recently with coming up in a group of our peers in this program, and it's like, I don't know these people. Like, what if what if I don't end up in a strong group? It is what it is. That's life.
That is life.
That is, and fortunately, we've been collaborating with some of our peers.
And look at how technology
well.
served us there. Like, I think you mentioned this earlier, but working with people from Texas all over, and using a Google Doc to rate each other and grade each other.
Dr. H, I think, is in Canada.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's insane. I mean,
Yeah.
I really am blown away with how much technology is used. Even my meetings, my day-to-day meetings, it's like, is it virtual? Is it in person?
Yeah.
I never know how it's going to go.
I have a virtual IEP meeting I have to attend Monday.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people are torn about the virtual meetings, but I'm like, I think it's great that we can provide options for people.
Yeah.
We have parents that are working.
For
we
sure.
have,
I agree.
Spanish-speaking families, all those things provide accessibility. I think that's one of the big takeaways for me when we talk about technology is like accessibility for students. Sure, there's always going to be those people that talk about the double-edged sword or technology being used negatively, but if you manage it the right way and utilize it, like with the project-based learning you're doing, career portfolios, I think for the most part I've seen students respect it.
Now, all right, last kind of thing we'll talk about here. We got about 5 minutes. With regards to like what you mentioned earlier about being proactive versus reactive, the Department of Ed is like much too reactionary with regards to like the technology curve. Do you foresee the integration of technology, like now and in the future, like are there any downsides to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any bit of change, we're always going to see the downside. I mean, you start to talk about privacy. You know, I think even within the school, we have students who different maturity levels. So what they're willing to put out there. I mean, social media, that's a whole different beast in itself. But you know, there's a piece of me that thinks that maybe our kids need like social media etiquette. You know, because sometimes when we're providing these young adults, in some cases children, with a technology device that gives them access, you know, that is one of the downsides, is access to negative materials or negative stuff. But overuse, I'm not too concerned about, as long as it's productive. No, I mean, I think there of course will always be those dark places and some kind of change, but I think it really has to do with the management style within a school.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think you want to try to strike a balance.
Yeah.
You know, like we see it, you know, we're in a high school, all of our students, my students, I'm sure a lot of your students, if not all, have cell phones. And technology is very stimulating. And just like with any stimulant, you can get addicted to it, you know? So I do think that striking a healthy balance between integrating technology and also utilizing, like, sometimes let's not use any technology.
Yeah.
Let's not look at a screen today.
I was just going to say, you know, we're going back to those conversations I have with employers. Like, the thing I love about blended learning, whether you're using technology or not, that project-based stuff, though, is that, you know, it helps Johnny, who might be the star student academically but has terrible interpersonal skills. And it also helps Chris, who is the most social butterfly in the world, but his academic skills are poor. Like, I think there's a lot of positives that can be taken by each side, and actually like a bunch of learning opportunities that Johnny and Chris could take from their interaction and collaboration with each other.
Yeah, and I think that also has me thinking about differentiated instruction with the use of technology.
Oh, yeah.
You know, obviously students have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's a great way to assign something in a differentiated manner, right? That you can differentiate the process. Like, say in my class, if I'm doing a debate or some type of Socratic seminar, and there are introverts in my class that just don't have the confidence to really speak their mind and like contribute their voice to a discussion, to extend our discussions, there's always an opportunity for them to, in a more comfortable environment, record a Flipgrid video, or like, this is what I was going to say in response to this concept proposed by this student. I just didn't have an opportunity. Differentiated instruction, you know, technology makes the process much more efficient.
I look at the subscription our district just purchased, Nearpod.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being able to really chunk things and slow things down for kids, no matter where they are. You can stop, you can keep a lesson together. I think it's really helpful.
My students are here, back from lunch. I think this is a very healthy discussion.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next episode.
I know. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Right down below.
And we will see all of you at our next class meeting. Hope everyone is well. Have a great weekend, because it's Friday today for us. All right. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Bye.